Good afternoon, brothers.
Good afternoon, Raul.
Salamat ha. So, nataasan ako magbigay ng talk ngayon. Mukhang pare-pareho yung mga prayers kanina, no? Talagang I think it's appropriate that we would come together to encourage one another. Sige, I will dive into our presentation this afternoon. Uh, I think nakita nyo naman that this year, meron tayong several hours na pag-iisipan, ano? Sabi niya, pinag-isipan namin ito ng leadership na this is a year wherein we would renew, regroup, redeploy, re-strategize. And so those are the different ideas that we would be handling this year. And siguro, you're already sensing na these words are directed to people who are trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Or you might even say that these are words that are relevant to people who are burned out or tired. I was reflecting on this, yung tiredness, burnt out, and sabi ko, when does that happen? I've been in the renewal for quite a bit, and I said, there's a way of looking at this that if you are measuring the Christian life in terms of moments in your life wherein you say, ang hirap naman ito. Gusto ko na mag-give up. I think I could say that this theme of renew, regroup, redeploy, re-strategize can be something that you would think about almost every week of your life as a Christian. From a certain perspective, you would say that this renew, regroup, redeploy, re-strategize is something that is just part and parcel of the flow of life. So I won't emphasize too much on each of the R's, but I'd like to emphasize at least for now. And you would say that even the starting R is already a sign that the others are connected, are interconnected. Whenever you renew, the next thing that you would do is you regroup. In order to do something, you would redeploy and re-strategize. And it goes back again. As you re-strategize, you renew, you regroup, redeploy, and re-strategize. And you might say it's part of the flow of life. No? So I decided, sabi ko, just to get some insights, I decided to read a passage, or at least study a passage, or reflect on a passage that I think fits our situation. Most likely, the disciples during this time experience all the R's all at the same time. But I would like to focus only on one, but you would see that the other R's are also relevant. And so we would read a passage where this main theme came from, this very unusual question, which I hope will make sense after the presentation. This question that Jesus gave his disciples, children, have you had any fish? And I will give you a quick sort of reading of this passage and then get some insights from the passage itself as a way to encourage us or to exhort us. So it's about renewal. And the passage is taken from the Gospel of John 21, 1 to 14. Let me just read the passage to you, and then from there, I will just jump into giving some insights about the passage itself. So it's one of the resurrection stories, and so it begins. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana and Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, the two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. And they said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got out into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as the day was breaking, Jesus stood on the beach, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, have you any fish? They answered, no. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in for the quantity of the fish. The disciples whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard it, it was the Lord. He put on his clothes, for he was stripped for work, and sprang into the sea. But the other disciples came to the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far off from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they got out on the land, they saw a charcoal fire there, and with the fish lying on it and the bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of the large fish, and 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." And now none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. So the theme is renew. So, brothers, just a quick sort of background, a way of entering into the story. There are many insights you could get from this story. And there are several resurrection stories in the Gospel of John. But you would only appreciate this story if you enter into the context and understand what was happening here, and use your imagination to enter fully into the resurrection stories. There are several of them, and you could just say, some people would even try to see, kailan nangyari yung kay Mary Magdalene? Kailan nangyari yung ganito? Kailan nangyari yung ganyan? Ano yung pagkasunod-sunod niyan? Okay, you could spend some time doing that. But I think a better way of understanding many of these narratives is there are different stories that happen in this segment of time when Jesus revealed himself again to his disciples as the risen Lord. And this is one of the stories. But you would only appreciate the story that it's a resurrection story if you enter into the truth that it happened after the suffering and death of Jesus Christ. You might even say you have to appreciate the resurrection by entering into the failure of the cross, or the failure that the disciples experienced when they saw their master offering his life on the cross. You have to enter into that failure. And you would only appreciate the failure if you know that before the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, before he offered his life on the cross, his disciples already experienced success. They were following a rabbi, a teacher, who was a healer and a preacher par excellence. No? Talaga makita mo na people were coming, and they were most likely experiencing the popularity of their master. You could even say that this popularity rubbed off on them, because you would know that in the Gospels, they were also given a chance to proclaim the good news. And they went back proclaiming, "Oh, you were able to cast out demons." And so you would see that this group of people, the disciples, experience profound success, and even most likely recognition that they've done something significant with their life, and they followed the right master. But imagine the collapse of everything, and And suddenly the master that they saw was so powerful became so human, so human to the point that they themselves were afraid of continually identifying themselves with this master. So you have to understand that context to appreciate the significance of this resurrection story. And it's only there that you would then see that this resurrection story is very significant. One important context is, it seems that the disciples might have encountered the risen Lord already, but they were rethinking about what they would do. And it's striking that this is one of the resurrection stories that it seems that the disciples decided to just go back to their old life of fishing again. They returned to the time wherein they were, before they were called by the Lord to the ministry. They just went back to fishing. That is the context of this resurrection story. And within this experience of failure, of them returning to the old ways, you might say, this is where they experience renewal. What's the first renewal experience? I think the first renewal experience is this, no? When they were asked, did you catch anything? The answer was no. They went back to their old ways. They were living their life back to the old pre-ministry experience. And even in their now new life of not going back to the ministry, they still experience failure. They caught nothing. And yet within that context of catching nothing, they heard the Lord tell them, cast out your nets. And within that life before ministry experience, they suddenly got reminded of what happens when you listen to the Lord. When you listen to the Lord, you suddenly end up experiencing abundance, catching again an abundant fish, abundant number of fish. They even say that the number that's mentioned in at least some versions of this story gives you a complete number of all the different kinds of fish in Galilee at that time. So it means to be speaking that every kind of people will be evangelized again. So some commentators would say that way, that that's the meaning of the significant catch of fish. But I think the more important truth is they were reminded again that amidst the failure and challenges of life, when you are not able to catch anything, the success would only happen within the context of the Lord telling you what you need to do. And often in life, what exactly that means of responding to the Lord's voice again, might come in different forms of us returning to a life of prayer, of us admitting that we cannot do it on our own, whatever it is. I think the renewal begins by reminding ourselves, especially during times of failure, that success belongs to the Lord. And I think it's even more important that when we're succeeding, to recognize that the success really does not come from us, but from the Lord. Another insight in this resurrection story that I think happens to all of us when we need to regroup, renew, regroup, re-strategize, redeploy, when we experience a moment in our life when we are rethinking our discipleship relationship with the Lord and what we're about in terms of our mission, is to recognize a certain renewal of conviction of who we really are, and what we want to do with our lives. There's a scene in the old Jesus of Nazareth movie wherein this particular scene was depicted, and John was asking asking Peter, after they encountered the risen Lord, and they were rethinking about what they would do with their lives. And Peter was known to have said this exact line that he said in this resurrection story: I will just go back to fishing. And in this particular depiction of this story, John, the apostle, said to Peter, would you really go back to fishing? Our lives have been changed. We can never go back to fishing. We have encountered Jesus Christ. We would never go back to fishing. So I think many of you did not give up your careers in the ministry for the sake of the ministry. Or many of us are doing our ministry amidst the fact that we're doing other things in our life. But the story is giving us a way of looking at our life. Fundamentally, who are we? What are we about? What are we doing with our lives? Isn't it the case that fundamentally all disciples are fishers of men? That what we've encountered from the Lord is never meant to stay with us. That by the mere fact you said yes to following the Lord, you are, by the very fact you made a choice to be a follower of Christ, you are a fisher. You are meant to catch fish. You know? And especially for us who are serving in Pathways. Last insight, and then I will end here. This resurrection story, what makes this classic is also the truth that it's a story about second chances. You know? A significant character here is Peter, who was willing to jump again into the water because he recognized the Lord. And you might say that this chapter 21 also contains the time when that Jesus asked Peter 3 times, do you love me? No. And so what's significant about this resurrection story is the mission that we have in life is very clear, that we would need these second chances. We would need second chances as we serve the Lord. We would need second chances every time we make a decision to become a missionary for the Lord. And so you might say, the story of Peter asking, is it the Lord? will happen many times in our life. Because often we are like Peter. We just want to go back fishing and to stop this thing that we're doing with our life, which is serving the Lord. But the story is a reminder of Peter's own experience, that he is given many opportunities to go back fishing, but fishing for men. And so I hope that this story that I just read, you can go back to it and find inspiration, brothers, that we are called by the Lord to renew each day our commitment to be his disciples. And that in the end, we are all men of second chances. And part of what we need to do is to recognize that the success of our ministry belongs to the Lord. That in but second, at the very essence of who we are is we are fishers of men. And let's grab the opportunity every time we fall to renew ourselves and say, sige Lord, ulit-ulit, I want to serve you. Okay, God bless you, brothers. I hope that this insights would at least be a source of encouragement for all of us.
Maraming salamat, Brother Raul. Bago ka namin pakawalan, can you just repeat the 3 messages that you mentioned?
Sige, ulitin natin yan. So, renewal in the recognition of why we succeed. It's because of the Lord. Tapos, renewal in our conviction of what we're doing with our lives. We are fishers of men. And also renewal in our relationship with God, knowing that the Lord always would give us second chances.